Four of the Orlando Magic starting spots are filled. Why I am not giving up. Why I'm not giving up on Wendell Carter on today's Locked On Magic.
You are Locked On Magic, your daily Orlando Magic podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And you are indeed Locked On Magic. Today is July 26, 2024. My name is Philip Rossman-Reich. I'm the senior writer over at OrlandoMagicDaily.com. Of course, follow me on Twitter at PhilipRR_OMD. On today's episode of Locked On Magic, we're going to talk about the weak spots in the Magic lineup, why I am not giving up on Wendell Carter, why the Magic still might have some questions at point guard, and the new challenge ahead for the team. We're going to get to all that coming up here in just a moment. But first, we want to thank you again for making Locked On Magic part of your day every day. No matter when you listen to us, whether it's first in the morning, whether it's right when we upload, we truly appreciate you making Locked On Magic part of your day every day. Remember, there's a great Locked On podcast covering every single team in the NBA. Just search for Locked On and the team you're looking for, the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day. Today's episode of Locked On Magic is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. As sports starts to lighten up here in the summer, FanDuel is here for you, hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right, something for everyone every day all summer long. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. I am not giving up on Wendell Carter. And I don't think you should give up on Wendell Carter either. That is something I believe in. That's something that I think is true. When we look at this Magic starting lineup, 4 of the 5 guys are set. Paolo, Franz Wagner just signed a brand new max contract. The Magic just added Kentavious Caldwell-Pope on a 3-year mega deal, 3-year, $66 million deal. Jalen Suggs is most likely going to get an extension, whether it's this summer or next summer. He is not going anywhere. And Paolo Banchero is going to get his own max extension very, very soon. That's 4 of your 5 starters. And as we begin to think about how this Magic team improves and how this Magic team competes against the elite of the league and try to break through into that conference, into that contender status, as of now, those are the 4 guys you're definitely riding in. It has been no secret that Wendell Carter has been one of the most sought-after players in the trade market, and that is going to be the case as we get into the season. As we get to the trade deadline, we will hear plenty of Wendell Carter trade rumors, especially considering he's only got 2 years left on his deal, and he is super-duper affordable. We spent, in fact, part of our offseason this summer thinking about ways to upgrade Wendell Carter and upgrade that center spot. We talked about Isaiah Hartenstein. We thought about Nick Claxton. We looked at potentially some trade options. But in the end, the Magic are sticking with Wendell Carter. And right or wrong, we're going to find out here in the course of the season whether Wendell Carter can hang tough. If you listen to this show, you know that I am a Wendell Carter supporter. I think Wendell Carter is a potential starting center for this team. There are questions to answer and questions to ask about him, but frankly, we haven't had the opportunity to gain all the information that we probably need to see if Wendell Carter can answer those questions. I'm not going to pretend otherwise, though. The last season was a bad one for Wendell. He averaged only 11 points per game and 6.9 rebounds per game, both low since joining the Magic back in the 2021 season. He still shot 52.5% from 4 and 37.4% from 3, but only on 3.1 attempts, so hardly the volume that you need. In his first playoff series, he struggled mightily, averaging only 7.6 points per game and 6.3 rebounds per game, shooting only 40.4% from the floor. Injuries have been the story of Wendell Carter's career, and they remain the story that last year too. Carter appeared in only 55 games last year. And in fact, he has eclipsed 60 games just once in his career. If there is a reason to doubt Wendell Carter and a reason to believe that he is not the answer at center, this is the reason. This is your argument. I can't argue against it. The Magic are hoping for health from Wendell Carter. And look, it is impossible to look at how bad his season was last year without understanding the context of his injuries. He broke his hand in the 4th game of the season, sat out nearly 30 games, came back, and I think even after the season admitted that he came back too soon because he wanted so bad to be part of this team and to help them reach the playoffs. And in fact, I even think that was his downfall in the playoffs themselves. Carter, if you remember, suffered back spasms in that loss to the Philadelphia 76ers in the penultimate game. He gutted it out coming off the bench against the Milwaukee Bucks in that finale. He played off the bench in games 1 and 2. I don't think anyone from the Magic will admit this. I don't think Wendell Carter will admit this. But Wendell Carter was probably playing with a very, very injured back in the playoffs. And on top of this, Carter had another surgery on his left hand that he had surgery on back in November. He had another surgery on it at the start of this offseason. He is supposed to be all set for training camps. He should be out of the cast by now, actually, now that I'm thinking about it. Injuries are the problem with Wendell Carter. But there's still a lot of reason to believe in him too. We've seen what he can do. In his first 2 full seasons in Orlando, he averaged 15 and 15.2 points per game. His ability to spread the floor and be a shooter in an offense that doesn't have a lot of shooting gives the Magic some necessary spacing. The Magic trust his decision-making at the elbow, allowing players to play off of him and get the ball in movement. He is an excellent screener. The Magic scored only 1.03 points per possession on pick and rolls where Carter was the roll man, but in 2023, they averaged 1.11 points per possession. Again, the injuries played such a big role. And in fact, even last year, he averaged 4.1 assist screens per 75 possessions, according to our friends at Basketball Index. That put him in the 88th percentile. Jeff Wellman has described Wendell Carter as the backbone of this team. And even defensively, he is that. The biggest criticism of Wendell Carter, and I think this is a fair criticism, is he is not an above-the-rim field goal percent. He is not an above-the-rim protector. That does not mean he is not a rim protector. Defensively last year, he was still pretty good, even if he took a little bit of a step back. Opponents shot 58.4% at the rim against him last year, according to Second Spectrum, and shot 3.10 percentage points worse at the rim than expected, according to Basketball Index. Those are only moderately down from his numbers a year ago. This is all to say that the Magic deciding to stick with Wendell Carter is very much what I used to say about Nikola Vucevic back in the day. You don't trade him until you know you have a better option in place. If the Magic knew they were going to get Isaiah Hartenstein, then if you think he's better, maybe you don't, trading Wendell Carter would have made sense. There are a lot of teams trying to line up and get Wendell Carter. We've heard the Pelicans, the Lakers have been calling me. I've had a lot of people call me and ask me, what is Wendell Carter's availability? And I say to them, at this point, unless you're giving us a starting center that's better, the Magic are probably sticking with their guy. And that's going to be the case, I think. But Wendell Carter has to do his end of the bargain. He has to be healthy. First and foremost, he has to be healthy. He has to make better decisions. He has to be willing to be physical. I think the injuries last year did prevent him from being more physical and kind of put him floating around the perimeter instead of in the paint. But make no mistake about it. If the Magic are a team that is about versatility and about their defensive switchability, Wendell Carter is someone who fits that style. And if we're willing to excuse him for injuries in the playoffs, we still haven't seen him perform at a playoff level. Again, I'm not going to sit here and pretend that he had this great 2024 season. His 2024 season was frustrating and frankly terrible. Like it wasn't up to Wendell Carter standards. And I think Dell's pretty hard on himself. I think Dell would agree with that. But that's not a reason to give up on him. But it also means there is pressure on him to perform. There is pressure on him now to be the center the Magic need him to be. Because those spots in the starting lineup are filling up quickly. The Magic are going to explore trades and ways to make their team better, to achieve their goals, to get to the next level. And Wendell Carter is a big piece of this puzzle. This is a sink or swim year for Wendell Carter, for things that frankly are not always in his control. He can't control that he gets hurt. It stinks that it's been a repeated story. It's been different injuries every year, but it is a repeated story with him, one that he has to overcome. But I'm not giving up on Wendell Carter. I am still a Wendell Carter believer. I think he does so many of the things that this specific Magic team needs. And when he is good, he is really good. But as we get closer to 2025, to the 2025 season, Carter's got to prove it on the floor because we are at the point of put up or shut up. This team is trying to win, and they need players to perform, or they need to find players who will. And that's where Wendell Carter is at. I'm not giving up. I believe he can do it. I am still a believer. But time is running out, as it is for so many players on the roster. So, the Magic roster being filled, we talked a little bit about that. That does mean that, yes, Jalen Suggs is going to be the point guard. Why there's still a little bit of question about how the Magic manage that spot. We'll get to that coming up here in just a moment. But first, today's episode of Locked On Magic is brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. The Olympics are here, and they're going to give us a little bit of respite here in the summer desert of sports. But FanDuel keeps you engaged in the world of sports because even in the summer when the sports stop sportsing, FanDuel has you covered. All you have to do is open the app and dream up bets anytime you're in the mood. And this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day, all summer long. If you're looking to play the Magic, the schedule's not out yet, so we can't really look at any games or anything, but NBA futures are up on FanDuel, including the Orlando Magic plus 47.5 plus or over under 47.5 wins on their over under. NBA award futures are out, including Rookie of the Year. I don't see Tristan de Silva going at plus 5,000. That's a pretty good bet, I think. I don't know. He could be important. Most improved player already has theirs with Paolo Banchero at plus 2,000. That's a sneaky one if Paolo Banchero goes from merely very good to super duper good, like we talked about yesterday. He is already on the list. Jalen Suggs is plus 5,000 for most improved player, something that a lot of us thought he should have won last year. Clutch player of the year is up. Coach of the year, Ime Udoka and Tom Thibodeau, the current favorites at plus 850. Jamal Mosley is way down there. Where's Jamal Mosley at on this list? I don't even see Jamal Mosley on here. What's going on? What's going on with that? Oh, there he is. Jamal Mosley plus 1,500, right in the pack, along with Mark Daniel to be plus 1,200. The point is, you can get set for the 2025 NBA season right now on FanDuel. So head over to FanDuel.com and start making the most out of your summer. FanDuel, official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball. We want to thank you for making Locked On Magic part of your day every day. For your next listen, be sure to check out the Locked On Sports Today 24/7 streaming channel program for you every day to bring you the biggest stories without the screaming. In fact, this is what's fun about those Locked On Sports Today 24/7 streaming channels. You get the best of the Locked On Podcast Network. The Locked On local experts telling you everything you need to know about the biggest stories in sports all day long. Locked On Sports Today brings you can't-miss analysis, opinions, and news streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app. That's all part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. For the 5 spots in the Orlando Magic lineup are set for the long-term future, or for at least the next 2-3 years. And that's left some people a little unsettled because the biggest need for the Orlando Magic was not addressed this summer. I know I said it after Game 7 and throughout the autopsy of the playoff series. Paolo Banchero freaking said it to the Washington Post. The Magic need a table setter. They don't need a point guard that will dominate the ball and be essentially the quarterback, but they need someone to kind of calm them down and create easy shots, essentially, for the star players. To me, that is the biggest need for the Orlando Magic. And yes, getting Kentavious Caldwell-Pope is great. I'm really excited to see KCP. I think the Magic are going to have one of the best defensive backcourts in the league. I think that he is going to give them some excellent shooting. I think they'll be able to do a lot of really creative things with him. He was a screener in Denver's offense. I think the Magic will run a lot of sets where he is screening for Paolo or ghosting to the three-point line. It's going to be fun. But it doesn't change the fact, and I think I've hinted at this before, it doesn't change the fact that the Magic's biggest flaw from their series with the Cavs still exists. Maybe the biggest flaw in their offense. They don't have a point guard. Now, maybe Jalen Suggs is going to grow into that. Maybe that's one of the big things they told him to work on. Certainly, reducing mistakes, reducing turnovers, that's the biggest piece of the puzzle for the Orlando Magic. A year of experience, maybe Paolo isn't turning the ball over as much, Jalen Suggs isn't turning the ball over as much. Maybe all this accumulates and means that the Magic are going to be in a better position and be better positioned offensively to take advantage of the versatility that they've built. But we still have to ask all these questions. We are not going into the season feeling comfortable that the Magic addressed one of their many issues. If you are upset the Magic did not convince D'Angelo Russell to decline his player option and come to Orlando to run point, or that Tyus Jones is sitting right there. Magic still have their room mid-level exception. They have a full roster, though. But Tyus Jones is still sitting right there unsigned. The Magic didn't address their point guard issue. Maybe it was because there wasn't a quality point guard out there. We could argue about DeJounte Murray later. Maybe it's because the Magic truly do believe that they have the formula already. These questions remain. And I know I've talked about this in discussing where the Magic sit in the playoff ordering and in the Eastern Conference ordering. And I have said that I think that the Magic will probably end up about where they were in the standings last year, but I don't know if they solved their problems in the playoffs. Now, granted, Orlando was a half away from beating Cleveland on the road and getting out of the first round. So maybe they aren't so far away. But point guard is still a major issue. They are relying on Jalen Suggs to be the quote-unquote point guard, to be the nominal point guard. They're going to rely on Paolo Banchero to bring the ball up and initiate offense and be a main creator. And I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. But like Paolo Banchero said, they need someone that's going to get him some easy shots. We talked about this a little bit yesterday, how a lot of these discussions questioning Paolo Banchero's credentials and questioning whether he can be that higher tier star, it starts with his efficiency. Well, his efficiency nosedives because he has to create everything. I'll give Seth Partnow this. He did concede that the Magic didn't have necessarily the cleanest growth environment for him. He's grown plenty, but they don't have the cleanest growth environment for him because he has to create everything for himself. This is the problem. And if there's something that could hold the Magic back, that could prevent them from being in that elite tier sooner than we think, it very well might be this point guard question. It might be this point guard issue. And figuring out how to solve that is going to be hard. Which point guards are available right now? Some people have suggested the Magic might chase Darius Garland. There's people speculating about going after LaMelo Ball. We'll see who comes up on the trade market. D'Angelo Russell will still be there in the trade market. There will be options because there's always options. This is the NBA. Everything opens up at some point. It's just about when are you willing to put the price in to get that. And, Magic weren't ready to spend their assets yet. This is, though, the thing we're going to watch all year. Again, I don't want to overblow this. And look, maybe the answer is there. Maybe there's something that we're not seeing because it's happening behind closed doors, and we'll find out in October just how good this team is. To me, I again, like Wendell Carter, I am a believer in Jalen Suggs. I think Suggs can improve in this area. I don't know if he'll ever be a point guard, a quote unquote point guard, but I think the Magic can release some of the tension, release some of the restrictions that they might have on him to prevent his turnovers and some of this wildness that he showed in his first 2 years, and that he can be a little bit more poised and under control. Again, maybe the answer is Anthony Black. I'm not so sure about that after Summer League. I thought that he showed good signs, but he's still got a ways to go. Point guard remains a question. It's really not just the starting group. It is that second group. Anthony Black and Cole Anthony are not pure point guards. Maybe Anthony Black can get there. Again, I'm not fully ready to hand over the keys to the car to him after that Summer League performance. I thought he did some very good things. I thought that he struggled in a lot of ways too. And so, frankly, if there is something that could hold the Magic back, if there's something that could prevent the Magic from being even what they were last year or exceeding what they were last year, it's the point guard spot. As much as we probably want to question and think about the Magic center spot with Wendell Carter, the Magic are kind of settled with Suggs and KCP. That is their team. That is their group. That is who they're going to go into the season starting with. We'll find out if they can handle it. We'll find out if especially Jalen Suggs, if Jalen Suggs can handle the responsibilities of being the lead point guard. And the Magic have to hope that they can get more out of their guards this year, because that was a major deficiency for them all last season, especially in the playoffs. And at the end of the day, that's what we're focused on. How do we win in the playoffs? And while I like what the Magic have done this summer, in my mind, they didn't answer the biggest questions they didn't answer the big question that they had coming out of the playoffs. And my fear is that these point guard questions that remain from the playoffs, we're going to be asking the very same ones when we get to the playoffs again next season. Of course, getting back is a challenge in and of itself. The new challenge ahead for the Orlando Magic, we'll talk about that coming up here in just a moment. But first, today's episode of the Locked On Magic is brought to you by our friends over at Gametime. It is a big weekend here in Central Florida. We've got the big game, Orlando City versus CF Montreal in Leagues Cup. Plus, Manchester City is in town. They're not my speed. I don't really care for them. But they're in town for a big match at Camping World Stadium. I believe it's next week. There's so much going on here in Orlando as we count down to the start of college football and, of course, the beginning of the NBA season. And if you want tickets to any of these great events going on here in Central Florida, Gametime is the place to go. They make getting tickets faster and easier, and prices on the Gametime app actually go down the closer it gets to the start of your event. I've used Gametime before, even if it's just to browse and kick myself that I didn't go to Gametime and have the patience to wait for these last-minute ticket deals. Gametime is the place to go for literally any event. They give you zone deals that help you save even more when you choose a section and let Gametime choose the seats. They give you the seat views. They give you that digital panoramic view from your seat in the app, so you know exactly what the game is going to look like on your phone before you get there. And Gametime's ticket coverage means your purchase is covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry. I actually used Gametime to go to a Rays game last year. I was having issues with the MLB app. Gametime customer service helped me out so much to make sure I had the tickets in my hand. They texted me the link to the ticket, was able to get into the game, had an absolute blast. I cannot recommend it highly enough. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNBA. That's LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. So this is the biggest thing. Call me pessimistic isn't the right word. Call me cautious. I'm a cautious person. I'm not going to lie. A lot of the goal for me this year is to do it again. Yes, be better. Yes, advance further in the playoffs. But a lot of what I want to see from the Orlando Magic this year is avoiding the problem of more and being at least the same as they were last year. How many times do we watch a team saddled with expectations, struggle to meet them, struggle even to meet what they did last year, struggle to repeat success. So much of what I think is going to be the biggest challenge of the upcoming season is to repeat success, to do it again, in other words. Look, there is nothing more fun than the first time you make the playoffs. That first season, when you're trying to make the postseason, when you've never been in the playoffs before, that first season, it's the best. It's so much fun. The team doesn't even understand how good they are. They're just experiencing winning for the first time, learning along the way, and just along for the ride. You're perhaps catching some teams by surprise on the way up, but you're just having fun. Last season was fun. The playoffs felt like gravy. Not like we were all upset after losing Game 7, but that anger quickly dissipated. Like, honestly, obviously I missed a lot of exit interviews on the day after the playoffs ended, but I went back and listened to every player talk about the season. Everyone who was despondent and sad in that locker room at Rocket Mortgage Fieldhouse on Sunday was optimistic and eager to get started for the next season on Monday. It did not take long for this Magic team to appreciate what they accomplished. But guess what? That season is no longer good enough. Now you got to deal with the expectation. Now you got to deal with, I am trying to be better. And what we experienced last year, that is the baseline. But the thing is, every season is different. Every season brings new dynamics, new challenges, new priorities, new expectations. It brings something new to the table every single time. And so now the Magic have a new challenge before them. Now the Magic have to do it again. Do you understand how hard that is? How hard it's going to be to win 47 games again, to do more than win 47 games again, when everybody knows how good you can be. Guess what? Now we have a baseline to understand, oh, this is what a winning Magic team looks like. Why are we giving up 120 points in a game? We were seeing that at the end of last season, actually, when the Magic lost to the Hornets and then lost to the Rockets. And we all sat there and said, this isn't Magic basketball. We're not going to erase the last 75 games or 77 games or 78 games or whatever it was, but we know you're better than this. We had maybe a month of that at the end of last season. We will have a full season of that because we know what the Magic can do now. We know what is possible. We know what this team is capable of, and we now have the expectation that they will meet those standards. That is the biggest challenge ahead for the Orlando Magic. They've got to meet this standard. And it's going to be different. It's a different challenge for everybody. Because now, look, the Magic understand this. You know, they're at least verbalizing this. They know that that game on a random Tuesday in January, as everybody likes to put it, that game matters. That loss is going to affect April. The expectations are going to rise. And it's not going to be just good enough to win on a nightly basis. Now you got to win your way, the way that the Magic play. And you got to string those wins together and build again, rebuild exactly what you built, but better next year. This is the biggest challenge for young teams. How many young teams have we seen come and go unable to meet this, to be able to do it again? And so if I'm being modest with my expectations, it's because at the very baseline of it all, what I need to see from this team is I need to see them do it again. On a very simplistic, basic level, the Magic have to do it again. And that is a challenge. Let's not skip steps in the process here. Yes, win 50 games. Yes, be home court advantage. Yes, get to the second round. All that stuff matters. But the first step is to be who you were last year at minimum. And that is something no one on this roster has had to do at an NBA level. For however long during this rebuild, we entered every season, frankly, brand new. Frankly, wanting to forget the season before. There's nothing to build on. So let's start from scratch. It was good to start from scratch. 0-0 felt liberating. 0-0 this time? 0-0 is a challenge. Because everything you built last year doesn't matter anymore. Now you got to do it again. And you got to prove you got to be able to do it again. Year after year after year after year. And hopefully you're building upon those foundations. And it becomes easier to be that 45-win team. And the difference between a 45 and a 52-win season is injuries or a player emerging or something. That is the challenge. It all starts with doing it again. And that's the big thing I think this Magic team is going to have to learn this season. I want to thank you all again for listening to today's episode of Locked On Magic. Of course, find me on Twitter at PhilipRR_OMD. Subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, TuneIn, Himalaya, Google Play, Spotify, Odyssey, and all the fun makes on podcasts to your podcast-enabled listening device. For the latest on the Orlando Magic, be sure to check out OrlandoMagicDaily.com. You can find us there on Twitter at OMagicDaily. And for even more Orlando Magic content, be sure to check out my Patreon page, the Orlando Magic Hub, at patreon.com/Orlando Magic Hub. As always, thank you for your support. Now that you're done listening to me, be sure to check out the Locked On Sports Today 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube, and now available on Amazon Fire TV and the free Fire TV channels app. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Find Locked On Sports Today now available on the free Fire TV channels app. That's going to do it for me today, though. I want to thank you all again for listening to today's episode of Locked On Magic. On our next episode of Locked On Magic, we will talk early Olympic basketball as Germany takes on, I believe they take on Japan on Saturday. We'll talk about how Franz Wagner and Mo Wagner do in that game. Talk a little bit of the Olympics throughout the course of the week, of course, and we'll see what else comes up over the weekend. We'll give the weekend. I won't say exactly what we're going to talk about on Monday's episode, but until then, for Orlando Magic Daily and Locked On Magic, this has been Philip Rossman-Reich. We'll see you all again next time for another episode of Locked On Magic.